It's back. Welcome back. Episode 33 of Icebreaker. AJ, how you doing?
Doing really well. Needing a haircut and fresh off the Super Bowl, Mac. We just turned it off and now we're recording the podcast.
And Tom Brady does it again. 7 Super Bowls.
7 Super Bowls, 5 Super Bowl MVPs. And who would have predicted he was going to toss 2 touchdowns to Gronk in 2021?
It's literally like Gronk was he was okay all season and then shows up and two catches for touchdowns in the Super Bowl. Had a big night too, receiving wise. Like it's just incredible what they did. They literally take Tampa Bay all the way to the Super Bowl. Like it's wild.
I think what they had said was when they picked him up, Tom Brady had the best winning percentage of anybody in sports. And the Bucks had one of the worst winning percentages of any team in sports.
Wow.
Wow. And now another fact here is Bruce Arians replaces Bill Belichick as the oldest coach to win a Super Bowl.
But his quarterback remains the same.
There's one key factor there, and
that's phenomenal.
TB12, Tommy.
And now he has more Super Bowl victories than the Patriots franchise and the legendary Steelers franchise, who both stood at 6. And when you think about that, you think about all professional sports. Some players never even make it to a championship game or series. And he's been there 10 times, but won 7 of them. Like, it's incredible.
And the way that this team is built, this Tampa Bay team, they could be back there next year.
They could. And so can the Chiefs.
Exactly. We talk about Gronkowski. Maybe he doesn't even come back. O.J. Howard was hurt all year for Tampa Bay, and he's a top-tier tight end. So it's not like their teams are dispersing anytime soon.
Oh, my. It's going to be a rematch next year. And I was laughing leading up into the week saying there's memes all over social media saying that the Chiefs don't have a quarterback named Eli Manning, which is funny. It proved to be true. And everybody, like even myself, I had my doubts. Like I thought, Patrick Mahomes he was gonna win, but I mean the Bucks D was something else.
Yeah, I mean, say what you will, you could have predicted that Tom Brady was going to win the Super Bowl, that the Chiefs are going to. Nobody was going to say that the Chiefs weren't going to score a touchdown.
Right.
Put that on that Tampa Bay defense. They wanted to show up, and I can't believe we skirted over it. First team to ever win the Super Bowl at home.
Yeah.
I think that must have been some motivation there.
First team to ever play in a Super Bowl at home, and then yet alone win it.
Yeah, that too.
Literally. Yeah, it was wild.
Unreal.
And then
it wasn't the craziest game. It was a good, solid, fun game to watch.
Wasn't the craziest game until the fourth quarter when some crazy fan decided to run out there.
I wish they would show the streakers when they run on television. You know how they just cut to the sidelines?
Yeah.
If you're watching this, whatever you're done, look up, I was telling you, Mac, I don't even think you've seen it yet, but look up Kevin Harlan calling the streaker. It could have been a 99-yard rushing touchdown. He gave it every single ounce of oomph that he could have given that call.
Yeah, and Jim Nantz on the feed I was watching, he coined it as the run of the night, which it certainly was.
It was up there. Fournette had a really good run, but yeah, the streaker with the bra who pulled his pants down, number 2 on the night, sure.
And as we move on from NFL for the offseason, sad day. We were talking a little bit last week, and you have a little bit of a hot take for us.
We were talking last weekend about where Deshaun Watson is going to end up, because I have to think now that the Hall of Fame stuff is over, the MVP of the year, which, by the way, my hot take was Patty Mahomes. So there's another hot take that we got wrong. I think that the biggest offseason move is going to be Deshaun Watson. A lot of people are saying he's going to the Jets. I don't think that's true. A lot of people are saying San Francisco. I don't think that's true. My hot take puts Deshaun Watson in Carolina next year.
Wow. And that's
play with the Panthers.
The Manitoba building trades hot take. It's not just any project. It's the opportunity of a lifetime. It's about building something great for Manitoba. That's why you turn to the talent and craftsmanship of Manitoba's expert tradespeople. Manitoba Building Trades is Manitoba's unionized construction industry. Productive labor is our business. With over 10,000 skilled trades professionals, we build what others can only imagine. Visit mbtrades.ca and come build with us. That is quite the take, and I hope you're right.
I think they have the money to spend. I think they have a lot of great weapons and a good defense. And even if they had to trade Christian McCaffrey to get him, I think that Mike Davis running the ball there, I really think that Deshaun Watson fits in Carolina.
And of course, I'm hoping to see him land in San Francisco, but
of course. I heard today Jimmy G's going back to New England, so who knows what's going to happen this offseason.
Going to be a wild offseason. And great news out of the Western Hockey League last week was that the U.S. division has got the go-ahead to go and start play later in March, which is great. So now 2 divisions officially cleared to go. So that's Alberta and the U.S., which is just great. It just brings hope to the other 2 divisions awaiting confirmation here, but just exciting for the junior players to get back on the ice here soon.
Yeah, we can't stress it enough. These guys have to get these games under their belts. So the fact that we're doing everything possible to get the season off the ground is double thumbs up.
There's more Western Hockey League chat a little bit later when Mitch Peacock joins the show. This week in our new segment, you are going to quiz me on something. Fill me in.
All right, trivia this week. I've got 5 questions. Casey was trying to make it back-to-back Super Bowls tonight. They didn't. Tom Brady was the last one to do it with the Pats. And so that's the theme tonight for trivia is back-to-back championships. We're going to play all types of sports here, Mac. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
I think we've built it with some easy questions, some tough ones. So I think this one you're going to get. Which was the last NHL team to win back-to-back Stanley Cups?
Pittsburgh Penguins.
2016, 2017, Pittsburgh Penguins. I don't have the buzzer, but there we go.
We'll get it in correct.
There. Question number 2. And we're shooting for 4 out of 5 is like a feasible.
Well, to tie.
Right, you got it. Which NBA coach had championship three-peats 3 different times?
3 different times.
3 times with 2 teams.
Off the top of my head, I want to say Phil Jackson.
He did it twice with Chicago, and then he did it once with LA. He technically won 6 in a row.
Yes.
He did it 3 with Chicago and 3 with the Lakers. So 2 for 2. Question number 3. The Yankees won the World Series in 98, 99, and 2000. Before that, who was the last Major League Baseball team to win back-to-back World Series?
I think I know this. Was it the Toronto Blue Jays?
In 92 and 93, they were the last ones to do it before the Yankees started to sweep everything.
The iconic video of the home run.
Both games, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You're talking Joe Carter.
Yeah.
Question number 4 in trivia tonight. This is good. So
I want to pause you there for a sec and remind our listeners and viewers, that was before I was born. A couple of these questions were before I was born. So
question number 4, Mac, happened way before you were born.
Perfect.
Starting in 1959, how many straight NBA championships did the Boston Celtics win?
Wow, I have no idea. I'm going to lay that out there. I'm going to have a guess.
Sure.
And I'm going to say 8.
8 is the correct number.
Let's go.
Celtics run the gamut from 8. In 1959 was their first of 8 straight NBA championships. That was a good guess.
Let's go. So that's 4 for 4, correct?
Puts you in the driver's seat here. You could sweep the board. Question number 5 is quite the opposite of back-to-back championships, Mac. Name one of the 4 teams who have never played a Super Bowl game. There are only 4.
One of the 4 teams who have never played a Super Bowl game. The Jacksonville Jaguars.
Bingo. 5 for 5. Do you want to know the other 3 teams?
Yeah, I do.
It's the Jags, the Texans. The Detroit Lions. And this one could change some year soon. The Cleveland Browns have never been to the Super Bowl.
Okay, so I was thinking off the top of my head, the Texans, the Browns, and the Jags, but I knew the Jags would be a home run. They've only been around for whatever recently, and I was like, yeah, that's good. But that was good
5
fun.
out of 5, buddy.
More fun in this episode is we changed it up a little bit, and I'm looking back through all our episodes here now. We're at 33, and you and I talk quite a bit about this, but we've had some really good guests on the show with great stories. So I figured this week, gonna pull out 5, stories. I have one, Mel Davidson, about the Olympic experience. Got some funny ones with Brandy Carlyle and a few more guests that I really enjoyed talking to, including former Western Hockey League play-by-play announcer for the Red Deer Rebels, who has now been promoted to the Edmonton Oilers with Cam Moon, and a good chat with him. So we have going to take a look back on those stories, starting with Mel Davidson. But you mentioned it. You were with Hockey Canada for a long time, including time spent. You won 4 Olympic gold medals, 5 World Championships, and then another 10 at the Four Nations Cup. Obviously, it didn't just happen. So can you take us back to the beginning and how it all got started?
Wow. Yeah. I mean, pretty fortunate in the opportunities I was given through Hockey Alberta first in our province, and then with Hockey Canada. But I think my first appointment with Hockey Canada was in 1993 when they threw together a women's team. You had to have one from every province, one athlete from every province, and then Ontario obviously is quite loaded in talent, so we got to pick a few extras, and we went to San Antonio, Texas for a tournament, if you can believe it, against the U.S. U.S. team at the time. So that was sort of started it, but my first World Championships was in 1994, and I mean, things just went on from there. It was a lot of great opportunities, a lot of fun. I mean, the downside of it at the time, it was really the only place for a female to coach. There weren't a lot of U Sport teams. There wasn't a lot of teams to coach, if you will. So if I had, one thing to look back on, I wish I was significantly younger now and could take advantage of all the opportunities for women in coaching and in sport. There's so many more than what I had, but I'm real appreciative of the opportunities that Hockey Alberta and Hockey Canada gave me to be able to experience some of the most incredible tournaments and work with some of the the best people in the game on in terms of the athletes and the staff.
Yeah. If I look back and I think back, I mean, I watched the Olympics growing up, and I 100% remember seeing you on TV and coaching. Is there an Olympic Games that kind of stands out for you in your mind?
Wow. I mean, they're all so different. My first one, 2002, as an assistant coach right after 9/11, and the environment and the way the world was at that time was such a different ride, and just trying to find competition to play against. And that's when we formed our partnership with the Alberta Major Midget League and started to play midget AAA teams in Alberta to help with our competition piece. And I mean, that games, I was so naive. I remember thinking, though, the one thing with that games, and it goes to, I think, all the experience and all the things you go to as a young athlete, as a coach, etc., was that when I got to the village, I was like, man, it's just like the Canada Winter Games, So it really, started to connect the dots for me. And lots of times we want to run before we can walk, but the importance of, on my end, the Alberta summer and winter games where you were sleeping in classrooms, etc., and the multi-sport dimensions around that, through to the Canada Winter Games, and then into the Salt Lake Olympics. The Torino Olympics was my first as a head coach, and that was a real special team. They were unbelievably connected and just on point. We had I believe, a good mix of leadership, of veterans, of people in the middle of their careers, and of young blood, if you would. And that, the only thing you look back on that, people kind of stamped that one, that the U.S. lost to Sweden in the semifinals, and we didn't play them in the gold medal. But man, we were a good team then. So it would have been fun to have seen ourselves against the U.S., but at the same time, you make your own fate. And we got to the final game, and unfortunately they didn't. And, Sweden was a formidable opponent, and, we couldn't just show up and walk away with the medal there. We had to play. 2010 obviously would be special, being in your home country, lots of stress and pressure. I remember thinking that going into it, well, as long as we don't screw it up in terms of getting in the way of the athletes, we'll be fine. And then just, still remember to this day the crowd and how exciting that was through there. And, at the end, winning, at the end of any of them, winning is just a relief. Like, it's like, oh, didn't screw it up, so it's just a relief, all the hard work. 2014 was really different for me. I was a GM then, and I'd battled an illness during the whole season. So I was sick and in and out of the environment. We made a coaching change. I had to leave the Olympics the day before the gold medal game, actually, and come back to Canada and have surgery. And I remember landing and the concierge meeting me in Calgary and being like, we just tied it up. We just tied it up. And she was like trying to circumvent me through customs. And I remember saying, well, is it going into overtime? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, well, we get a flood, so I can go through customs here. We don't have to break any rules. And then my sister picked me up and we went right to Montana's, the little pub there in the Calgary airport. And just, it was right full. Everybody was watching. And, we found a table in the back corner, and she was like, disgusted with me, is just tell them who you are, like, get up to the front, like, gotta watch this game. And then I realized, we won. We just sat down and we scored, and it was so exciting. And then just driving to meet with the doctor as to what was going to happen for myself, and Bob Nicholson and Kevin Deneen and Scott Smith all called me, and that was special as well. So that one was really a different year for sure. And the 2018 Olympics, even though we didn't win, it just goes to show you how close things were, right? To go for your fifth and not win it in a shootout, was heartbreaking. And I still, just speaking about it, almost get sick to my stomach. So it's still right there. But yeah, some great opportunities that I've been able to have. But even more than that, the people I've met along the way have been terrific.
Always a pleasure to talk to Mel Davidson, one of the leaders in growing the women's hockey game around the world, and just such great insight and experiences, around the game and what she's done within Hockey Canada, women's hockey. This next guest has quite the crazy story, and we're going to go right back to the beginning of where it all started. And that's Cameron Hughes, or better known as Cameron Cheers, who goes around to sporting events around the world and cheers. And he has some signature moves that we're going to hear about in this snippet as we get going here. But this is how his whole gig started, and what a wild ride it's been.
Let's go. Let's bring the Manitoba some cheer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Come on.
Absolutely. So I was doing some research, and you started this by accident at an Ottawa Senators game way back when, against the Winnipeg Jets.
Against the Jets, it was but there was probably like 30 feet of snow that day. But I vividly remember leaving the arena with there was Canadians, right? They still go to the game. It was a Saturday night, super chill, quiet. The Sens were not very good. Winnipeg was a lot better, and the crowd was just so dead. Third period, 8 minutes to go. I'm like, I got to do something. This whole thing came over me, and I'm like, I'm going to do it. My buddy, your friends are like, don't do it, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm doing it. It's too late. So next thing I know, I'm up on my chair dancing, acting like a lunatic, and the crowd's looking at me like, should we call the paramedics? Like, should we get some help? And I just kept going, and that's been sort of my through line in life, is I've just kept going. You know what I mean? 26 years later, still going.
No, that's unbelievable. And then I saw that. So the first time you stood up, and then the next time you you went on the stairs.
Yeah, that's, I joke with people that, there's you look at a lot of clips. If you're on YouTube and you're looking at sports clips, you see a lot of people do funny things in their seat.
Yeah.
For some reason, I've obviously, it wasn't just this moment, I was the crazy guy in high school and with mascot. And so I wasn't afraid of a crowd, but I'd never done anything like this, right? But I tell people, at events that I do, that the reason it happened, I have a career, is because of the next time I went to the aisle. And without that, it would have just probably been a funny moment. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And then there is some footage of me in the aisle, just like, it's hard to dance on the aisle, by the way. It's there. So yeah, that's sort of what set the tone, that brought it to the next level.
And so I wanna ask where the shirt thing came from, wearing 20 shirts, and how did that start?
Yeah, so I was kind of in and out of university trying to figure out what to do with my life. I had a clothing company. I was repping all these different, schools and companies and trying to sell T-shirts and sweatshirts back in the day. And we used to have all these leftover T-shirts, my friend and I, that were doing it. And I was like, what if I put a crazy picture of me on the front with "powered by" the name of our company on the back, and I threw the shirts out. And people were like, I don't know. And then, you know what I mean? And then I was like, I don't think fans, and then suddenly I'm like, put them on me, and I start twirling them around. And then it basically was like rewarding fans for getting involved, Right. And then I'll never forget, I go to Toronto a couple years later, a year and a half later, and the Leafs were like, they gave me a shot, they're like, okay, try it in this crowd. And by the end of the game, they're like, okay, you can come back, but we need you to wear Leaf T-shirts. So that's when I knew that there was the power of, we all know what it's like to put on our favorite team jersey or shirt, right? You become part of something.
He literally loves to bring joy to everybody in a stadium, and you have to applaud him for that. He goes out of his way to make your experience better. So thanks for joining us on Icebreaker, Cam. This next guy, also Cam Moon, former play-by-play voice of the Red Deer Rebels, as mentioned earlier, and now is the play-by-play voice of the Edmonton Oilers. And we're going to talk to Cam about where it all started for him and why he wanted to get into broadcasting in the first place. And now he's calling games in the National Hockey League for his childhood and hometown team. You're in Red Deer right now, and that's where the World Junior Camp is. We'll get to that in a sec. I mentioned that you're play-by-play for Red Deer, and just how did you get into that, and when did you get started with that?
Well, I came here in 98, so it's been a while now. I did 3 years in the BC Junior League with the Nanaimo Clippers before I came here. And before that, I was doing some television work through the winter with TSN on their WHL broadcasts, a little bit of OHL, a little bit of Quebec Major Junior at that time. I started that in my second year at school when I was at NAIT in Edmonton, where I'm from, and kind of got into it that way. I wanted to get a play-by-play job, so that's why I went to Nanaimo, and it's just sort of gone from there. So yeah, it's been a real fun ride. It's been great. I love junior hockey. I love the Western Hockey League. It's just so much fun, so professional. Great. We get to go great places, get to see a lot of great things. So I've enjoyed it tremendously.
Yeah, and you can tell with the passion that you talk with while you're on the air. You said you've been there since 98, so obviously some good players have come through there since then.
Oh yeah, for sure. We've been very fortunate, and I mean, you go through every team and see that they've had guys that have gone on to great NHL careers. And here, Dion Phaneuf and Cam Ward, and Brandon Sutter, and Colin Fraser, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. I mean, there's been a bunch of them that have come through and have done really well at the next level. But there've been a lot, and certainly this is the majority, that have gone through, have had, I would like to think, really good experience and have taken advantage of the education money and been able to go to school after and go to the University of Alberta or Calgary or Saskatchewan or Manitoba or whatever, and take advantage of that. And quite honestly, I get as much fulfillment in seeing guys access that and then talk about, especially when you talk to them after, what a great experience they had at Canadian University Hockey or wherever they go, that they had so much fun and that it was so good. So I love seeing guys go on to NHL careers. That's wonderful. I also like seeing guys go on and go to school after too.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people forget that, when they come into the Western League, most of them are 16, 17 years old and are trying to make it. And let's just talk for a sec about one of the players that you formerly had the chance to call games for, Dawson Barteau, who came over to the Winnipeg Ice organization. And there's not a better person out there than him.
No, he's right up there. Like, if you talk about guys that have come through here, like all-time great guys, he's definitely on that list. And the second we got Dawson, and we got Dawson via a trade. He was a first-round pick of the Regina Pats, and there was a trade made when Regina was hosting, and we sent a couple of older guys their way. They sent some younger players and draft picks our way. Well, one of the younger players was Dawson Barteau, and he came to us. It was about halfway through his 16-year-old year, and he was just a great fit because he's such a quality person. And I hope he has a great and very lengthy professional career. But however it goes and whatever happens, even when hockey's done for him, which hopefully will be 15, 20 years down the road, he's going to be a successful kid because just the way he is, the way he approaches things, the way he approaches life. We're really lucky to have him here. I felt very fortunate that we had him here. And he's about as good as it gets. So really excited to see what the next step is for Dawson Barteau.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And he told me a funny story. He said that we were talking on the bus one day about chips and dip, and he said that you put them on the ketchup chips and dill pickle dip.
It's you look at it from the outside looking in, you're like, that's probably not a mix, but you give it a shot. Give it a shot, and it's not bad. It's not bad. I don't know that it's for everybody, but I'm just saying, don't downplay it before you try it. That's what I'm saying.
You know what? I'll give it to you. I did try it, and it wasn't too bad, actually.
Not bad, yeah.
And it came up because I was having salt and vinegar chips in the French onion dip, and he right away told me about your ketchup chips and the dill pickle dip.
That's right. Now I want to try your concoction.
Try it.
Like, I'll give that a go. Sure.
You won't meet a nicer guy than Cam Moon. So congrats to Cam on living out his childhood dream. This next guest, longtime family friend and former Winnipeg Jet, who many and widely known as not wearing a helmet in his National Hockey League playing career. And I asked him about that and his season in which he won the Norris Trophy, and that's Randy Carlyle. Some great stories. This was a fun episode, and check it out. And I had James Patrick on the show the other week, and another former player that's now a coach. And he said when he turned coaching, when he was a player, he was like, well, they're just coaches. And then he became a coach, and he didn't realize all the time that had to go into coaching.
Well, again, the players, there's no better life as far as being involved in the game than being a player. It's the most exciting time. And you spend the least amount of time of anybody at the rink. Everybody else is there to support you. And it goes right from the training staff, the medical staff, to the coaching staff, strength and conditioning, video. All those people put a tremendous amount of time and make sure everything is ready for when you get to the rink. When you enter into that dressing room, your focus is supposed to be, and at 99% of the time, is preparing yourself for the task at hand. And that's on the on-ice product, working and competing and getting out there and making yourself better. And there's a professionalism that's expected of young players that you got to learn how to be a pro and do the things the professional way. And we're there to try and guide them and help them find that. And a lot of guys struggle with that. And I don't think that I was very good at it early in my career. You just had to walk the walk, and then you had to learn what the longevity and some of the players that you were playing around you, what they did. And you learned from that, and you tried to pass that message along to other players to develop a program. Feel good about your program, go to the rink and enjoy it. But again, you've got to commit to it. It's not something that just comes and goes.
Yeah, no question. When looking at old photos of your playing days, and it's widely known that you didn't play with a helmet. What was up?
Yeah, my wife always said, no brain, no pain. So it was just one thing, we started, and, I go back a long ways, and helmets weren't mandatory in the league at that time.
I know.
I started in 76, my first year in Toronto. I was drafted by the Toronto Maple Leafs, and nobody wore helmets. The whole team was helmetless. And then gradually it became an option, and then more and more players started to wear them, but they grandfathered that if you were in the league before, you could make that decision. But every young player coming into the league had to wear a helmet. And I think that started in 78 or 79. So I was fortunate enough that I didn't have to. It just wasn't part of my equipment. But I did wear a helmet in the World Championships 1 year in Sweden. I wore a Jofa Gretzky, and I was one ugly hockey player.
Maybe I'll have to look that up. And you snuck a Norris Trophy into your trophy case as well.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to, get into a situation. I got traded from Toronto, and they traded me to Pittsburgh. And I went to Pittsburgh, and they were a team that was looking for some injection of youth. And I got an opportunity to go from being a sixth defenseman in Toronto's system, because I played behind Boreas Salming and Ian Turnbull. And then they had Trevor Johansson was a young guy that came in at the same time as I did. And Roger Nielsen felt he was a better suited player for their mix. They traded me to Pittsburgh for Dave Burrows, George Ferguson, and I. So we went to Pittsburgh, and then I got elevated. I was in the top role. I was either one or two in their makeup of their group. So it gave me an opportunity to play. And I made mistakes. I made lots of mistakes. But I developed there into a pro hockey player. And that's where you got to learn. You got to do some things differently. You had to change the way you were approaching things, and you went to practice to get better, not just to fill time and space.
Right. Always fun getting to chat with Randy Carlyle. This next snippet was an earlier episode. One of my favorites to date was bringing the band back together, and that's Hustler and Lawless, a former radio duo in Winnipeg, and now, moved on to other things, but getting them back together on my show. And I asked them, they used to have some pretty good fights or arguments on air, and I asked them about that and what it was like working together. So this is a pretty good little snippet, and check it out. Gary, you said you guys are like brothers, and with brothers comes a few little arguments, and you guys have been known to have a couple dust-ups on air. What comes to mind when I say that?
Well, we do. It's funny, like, we see the world completely different. Like, I've never played fantasy football. I've never played a video game.
Completely out of touch, basically.
And I am old school in the fact that I would, make my calls, do my reporting, and then kind of, form my opinions in that manner. And Andrew comes from the fan perspective. So, listen, the whole job as a sports columnist is to write things that are provocative, so that, like, I would always say when a couple gets out of bed in the morning, I want one of them to say, I hate Gary Lawless, and I want the other one to say, I love Gary Lawless. Like, that's the whole secret of the job. So I think for Hustler, like, one day he'd think, oh, Lawman, you're so smart. And one day he'd go, you are such a jerk. We would get pretty heated on air for sure. It was, but it was always, it was, well, I wouldn't say it was professional, but it was, but it wasn't an act. Like, we really, we had chemistry that Bob Irving said that to me very early on. He goes, look, you can't manufacture it. You can't buy it. He goes, what you guys have is once in a lifetime. And it was fun going to work every day. Like, it was, and we would do one segment where we would agree wholeheartedly, and the next segment we were ready to throw stuff at one another.
I mean, the beauty of it all is, and once in a while, a few things like that happen. But much like Gary's analogy to being brothers, I mean, we could be going at it, killing each other. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And you are so out to lunch and go at it, and to the point where people might be getting uncomfortable listening to it. And then we go to a break, take a breath, or go take a leak and come back and laugh before going into the next segment. And that's why it was always fun to do the show. I mean, a lot of the things were natural, but I mean, as far as massive, fights or anything like that, I mean, it was all based on topics. It was all just general passion for whatever we were talking about. But I mean, 99.9% of the time when we finished the show and left, we were always pretty happy and on good terms, and we're able to get up and do it again the next day, I guess, which is what it's all about.
Those guys are always good for a good laugh. And changing direction here, we're going to bring in Mitch Peacock again, and we're going to do a little bit more Western Hockey League talk and Winnipeg Ice. Mitch, thanks for joining the show.
Yeah, great to be here, Mack.
You did an interesting piece last week with some video. You chatted with a couple Winnipeg Ice defensemen, just I guess about their mental process in general and dealing with COVID, but also what they've been doing workout-wise, skating-wise, which was pretty interesting.
Yeah, really neat to catch up with them and see them in their home environments. We're talking about Ben Zalotti and Nolan Orzek, two defensemen, both from Calgary, and just what they were doing to try and stay active and try and stay sharp and keep the spirits up and keep in shape. And both of them have made modifications to their home with some gym equipment and fitness gear and are putting a lot of work in. Both of them mentioned outdoor rinks. I thought it was interesting that Nolan, or the people's champ, I guess I should say, talked about skating on an outdoor rink and skating with other Western Hockey League players on an outdoor rink. And not just doing that, but skating in full gear. So these guys are doing everything they can to stay sharp and to be ready. And both are very excited about the prospect of this 24-game season. And I just, that behind the scenes look is so special. You can talk to somebody about what they're doing, but to then go a little deeper and see the pictures and the video of where they're working out and what they've done, it really speaks to the commitment of these guys. Pretty cool.
Yeah, and it was funny you bring up the outdoor rinks that they're doing full gear now, and you think back to like every young hockey player playing in outdoor tournaments, and used to play in full gear on the outdoor rinks. I can't imagine what it's like with a bunch of Western Hockey League players. That ice must take a beating.
It must take a beating, and it must get the attention of people walking by are used to seeing kids moving in slow motion and taking the odd wrister and talking to their buddy. And all of a sudden, there's a bunch of guys out there that are in top shape, flying around and maybe bumping into each other, and the slap shots are zinging. And yeah, that's not the average outdoor skate to come across for sure.
And then you moved into, the home gyms and what they have set up there. And both players really lucky to have, a pretty good amount of equipment in there to stay in shape.
A lot of times we forget about the commitment that the families make. Parents, brothers and sisters, the sacrifices, everything they do to help these guys chase their goals and try to be the best that they can be. And it's funny because I asked Ben if there was a lot of negotiating involved to get that gym equipment brought into the house, and he said no. Actually, it was surprisingly straightforward, and that just tells you these parents see how much these kids love to play. They see how they want to be the best they can be, and it's tough. I mean, there's a financial commitment. They're giving up space in the house or the garage, whatever the case might be. But really, it just is such a good reminder about what these people do to help and try and give these kids a chance to do whatever it is that they're trying to do in the game.
Yeah, and some of those kids, what they want to do is make it to the pro level. And at the end of last week, you wrote an article about all the draft prospects within the East Division, and there's quite a lot.
Yeah, it's funny because some years, it's more than others, and I think this is a pretty hardy year in terms of the East Division of the Western Hockey League with respect to prospects for the upcoming NHL draft, which is slated to go in July, but we'll see when it actually happens. It seems to be a bit of a question mark right now with everything going on related to the pandemic, and that's understandable, maybe a conversation for another day. But 36 players in the Western Hockey League have been named to NHL Central Scouting's watch list. That in itself is impressive. But then you boil that down a little bit and you see that 13 of the 36 are in one division, the East Division of the Western Hockey League. So that speaks very well to the division. You've got 6 forwards, 6 defensemen, a goaltender. You've got 2 A prospects, which means these are guys projected to be first-round picks. We're talking, of course, about Winnipeg Ice defenseman standout Carson Lambos, and a forward with the Moose Jaw Warriors by the name of Ryder Korzak, who had a terrific season last year on a Moose Jaw team that's retooling. They're getting themselves together pretty sharp for the future. They look like they've got some very good young players there. They've got a great staff, and they're building. But Ryder Korzak last year in a non-playoff year, more than a point a game, and he's really garnering attention as a first-round prospect as well. Nolan Allen, excellent defenseman with the Prince Albert Raiders, as a B prospect. There are only a handful of those in the whole league. In fact, there's only 3 B prospects in the Western Hockey League on that Central Scouting list, and he's one of them. He's in the East Division. And then you move into that category of C prospects, guys projected to be 4th to 6th round picks. And there's a good number there in terms of the East Division, including Mikey Milne of the Winnipeg Ice, who's working back from injury right now. But really a good year for the division and some real quality prospects to look to. And I know people watching last year will say, well, there was 4 first-round picks last year. So the East is a beast, and it's going to be fun to see when it gets going again.
And I know we've talked about this before, but the idea of a 24-game season for these players that are named on these lists has got to be an exciting feeling.
You know, any chance to play for these guys, they're going to eat it up. They've been chomping at the bit now for almost a year to get out there and compete and to put all their training to work and to get a chance to be with their teammates, to help their team to be the best it can be. And then, to showcase their abilities and show what they can do for the scouts. I think is something that they just can't wait to do. And, talking to people the best you can these days through social media and on the telephone and things like that, there's a buzz, there's an excitement. Hockey fans miss their WHL, and maybe not as much as the players, but they miss it. And it's going to be an exciting time when it all comes together.
Moving into this week, what do you got in store for us?
Well, we're going to focus on newcomers this week, Mac. The idea is to take a little bit of a deeper dive into some of the players on the ice roster and guys trying to be on the ice roster, players that are maybe had a chance to dip their toe in the water a little bit in the Western Hockey League, others aspiring to do that, hoping to be a part of the Western Hockey League team in Winnipeg, and just find out more about who these guys are, what they bring to the table, their background, some of their qualities, and talk to fans a little bit about players to watch for with the Winnipeg Ice. And then a little further than that, just broaden that out to talk about players to keep an eye on coming into the East Division. We've talked about some of the guys that are in line to be drafted by NHL teams, but who are the future guys that NHL teams are going to be looking at? So we'll peek around the division and talk about some of the names to keep an eye on for the season ahead.
And a couple of those players, just off the top of my head, would be, Connor Geekie coming in for the Winnipeg Ice. Obviously, Bedard getting the exceptional status to get his toes wet. Just, some real good players going to suit up in the East Division.
It's incredible when you think about it. They just seem to keep coming. Western Canada can really produce hockey players, and another batch is on its way. And Connor Bedard gets the real big buzz coming in because of that exceptional player status that he was granted. It's got to be difficult for him because I'm sure as much as anyone, he was excited. The league was excited. The Regina Pats could hardly wait. Their fan base was raring to go to get a chance to see this incredible young talent out of BC. He spent some time over in Sweden getting ready for the year. This is a really quality young man from what I understand. So, that's one example and probably the one getting the most attention. But when you come back to Winnipeg and look at the ice, how about Connor Geekie? Let's not forget about him. 2nd overall pick in the Bantam draft. He's a 6'4". I see some places where he's listed as around 190, but the word is that the workouts have been going pretty well out there in farm country in Westman. And I'm hearing it's more like about 200. So imagine that at that age. And that's just the physical part of it. He's a smart guy who loves to play the game, brings a lot of energy. James Patrick, I know, saw a lot of good things in him last year and just had him on the wing a little bit to get him into the league. But my sense is he's going to play center ice. That's an important position with a lot of responsibility on a good team. So no shortage of good players to talk about coming into these divisions.
Yeah, it's definitely exciting times. Well, listen, Mitch, thanks again for joining the show.
Yeah, it was good to be here, Mac. Take care.
Well, that'll just about do it for episode 33 of Icebreaker. Thanks for checking it out. If you want to listen to any of those snippets, full episodes, you can find them all on Spotify, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to the podcast, YouTube. So check them out. All great full episodes there for you to click. If you're watching on YouTube, they'll be linked in the bio. And I appreciate all the listens and ratings and comments. If you like it, pass it along to your friends. It's much appreciated. Hope everybody has a good week, and we will talk to you next week.